All right. Hello, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about why the current anti-hustle culture that we're being sold is not actually anti-hustle culture. It's a scam. And why it's so important that we recognize that this is a scam and that we recognize why it's a scam and what is a scam about it so that we can find the truth, so that we can find an actual solution that's going to actually help us disconnect and disengage from the hustle culture that we have been all conditioned we need to be engaging in order to be a good person, and how disengaging from this when and where we personally can, which is absolutely different for everybody, helps to create a better system for all of us. Because this is the big thing about hustle culture and the way that we are currently being taught in our world that we have to be in order to be good producers and in order to be worthy in our system. It's not only harmful for us as individuals, which it is, but it's collectively harmful. And when we can start to understand that it's not just about how it's affecting us, and when we can understand that us changing the ways that we interact with this system allows us to be better community members for the rest of our humanity, when we start to understand that when we start to take care of ourselves better in ways that are anti-hustle culture, we are actually helping to contribute to a world where more people are going to be able to get their needs met more easily and fewer people are going to be exploited, and we are then demanding a new system that is going to work better for everybody. This is something that, again, we can start to understand why it's so important, even beyond just how it's going to impact our own individual lives and make us feel better. Now, again, this is like a really deep and nuanced topic, and I am going to try to cover as much as I can in this talk, I'm going to try to cover as much as I can in this talk, and hopefully it's just very helpful and you come away with useful tools and things that you can use. And then on top of that, I just want to say that again, right, that our hustle culture is part and parcel, very, very tied into this idea that we are not enough, that we are not good enough, that we are never enough, that we are not allowed to love ourselves, that it is not okay for us to accept who and what we are right here, right now, ever, because if we were to do that, we would start to check out of these systems. And these systems that keep us in hustle culture, that keep us doing things that are detrimental to our health, that are detrimental to our mental health, that are detrimental to our communities, that are detrimental to our environment, it's all because we've been deeply trained to see ourselves in a certain way and to see culture in a certain way and to see success in a certain way that is not in alignment with reality. And that is why I created the Mystery School, because deprogramming ourselves from all of this stuff and actually being able to act on that deprogramming, so not just understanding it intellectually, not just seeing it with our eyes and understanding it with our brains, but being able to actually do what we need to do to disengage from it is really hard. And I just want to validate that and put that out there again, that to actually rebel from hustle culture, to actively rebel from the culture that we live in that is so harmful, to actually change your actions so that you can live in a way that's more sustainable for all of us is not easy. And again, I try and give away as much information as I possibly can for free on all of my platforms around how to do that. But if you are wanting some extra support, if you want a community of people who are doing this work too, because this can feel really, really lonely, if you want a more like step-by-step guide for how to do that, join the Mystery School. That is why I created it. It's literally my guidebook of all the things that I wish I had known and all the tools I wish I had had all along my path of figuring out how to like disengage from the system as much as I could, so to find a life that works for me as good as it could, and to keep getting better, and to be on this path of progressing away from what culture is doing and progressing towards something better. It's not something you just do. It's definitely a process and a journey, and something that I'm still doing, and that all of that. So that's why I created the school, so that we don't have to do it alone, so that we don't have to do it by ourselves, so that we don't have to figure it all out by ourselves, because it can be very, very challenging. And like I said, so that it can be something that's more guided and step by step, so that you're not just like, okay, so what do I do with all the self-love work? And how even does self-love fix anything anyways? That's what the course is for. So you can always check that out. The link is in my description of the YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link is in my Instagram link tree. If you're watching this on Instagram, you can find it on my website, perceptiontrainers.com. Just reach out and send me a DM if you want more information. That's all I want to say on that. Okay, so again, we live in a world right now where, let's just say it for how it is, human life and all of life, environment, anything that's living is judged, okay? Everything that exists right now within our system, humans, nature, animals, whatever you want to say, exists and is judged as being good or bad, productive or unproductive, helpful, not helpful, acceptable, not acceptable, worthy, not worthy, lovable, not lovable, all of these things, based on how well it fits into our systems of consumption and production. Okay? We need to understand that that is the fundamental paradigm we have all been handed for determining the value of something. How well does it fit in to our systems of consumption and production? How well does it serve to make sure that production, what is being produced, which then turns into profit for the people who own those methods of production, how well does whatever exists serve to make sure that that production and that profit is always increasing? That is how we have been trained to value everything. How well does it increase profit margins for those who run the system? And when we take a step back, hopefully we can see that if we were making systems based on what has actual value, if we were living in a world where what was actually valuable was what was valued by people and culture, and what was actually valuable was the foundation for how we created our systems, we would be saying life is what has value. Human life, animal life, plant life, the environment. Yes? Life, humans, people, animals, environment, this is what has value. This is what is inherently valuable. These are the things that we should be protecting. These are the things we should be nourishing. These are the things we should be shaping our systems around to make sure that these things are as supported as they possibly can be, with our level of understanding, with our level of technology, with our level of awareness, with our level of skill, with our level of accessibility, all of this. We should be, if we were an actually pragmatic society, basing our systems, basing everything that we create around how well does it support what has value. That would be the definition of anti-hustle culture. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. The definition, the true definition, if we think about it logically and reasonably, of anti-hustle culture, which is a culture that actually works, a culture that's actually sustainable, a culture that makes sense in terms of actual value, would be a culture that says what has value, and we're determining that that is human life, animal life, environment, all of these things we need to exist. The things that have consciousness, the things that have semi-consciousness, this living, breathing environment that we live in is what has value. So how do we create systems that support that? That is anti-hustle culture. That is then putting work and productivity in their proper place. Because pragmatically, again, the reason we should be working, if we think about this logically and reasonably, the reason we should be working, the reason we should be producing things, the reason we should be doing all of this labor is for an outcome of supporting life better. Does that make sense? If we were pragmatically saying the reason we work, the reason we put in effort, the reason we do labor, the reason we produce any of the things we produce is because the effort that we put in yields a result of giving us something we need, giving us something that works, giving us something that is pragmatically useful and valuable to keeping what has value alive and thriving. Right? Work is not a virtue for work's sake. Productivity is not a virtue for productivity's sake. When we live in a real world with it, when we are basing our values and basing our focus and basing our this is why we do this on what is pragmatic, we would say the only reason we work, the only reason we are productive, the only reason we do these things is because they make life better. They support people more, they support the environment more, they support animals more, they support what has life thriving more. Okay? So right off the bat, we can understand that labor is always going to be necessary to a degree. Working is always going to be necessary to a degree. Because we don't live in a world, we don't live on a planet where everything is just naturally set up for life to function optimally. All of the ways and all of the systems that we have created to increase food production, to create shelters so that we can live longer, medicine, sanitation, all of these ways that we have created so that we can distribute what we have created to more and more people. The ways that we have learned how to communicate and share messages and work with each other. All of this stuff that has required labor and has required work, that isn't going to go away. So I know that a lot of the time when people hear like anti-hustle culture or anti-work culture, they kind of swing wildly the other way, thinking that what that would be is like nobody working and nobody doing anything and everyone just expecting a handout. And again, we can pragmatically understand that that wouldn't work. Society couldn't function without some form of labor. Society cannot function without some form of cooperative labor where the people are putting in effort to create the things that we need to support life. And this does not even mean that we can't have like innovation and expansion beyond what we have and growth and an expansion in lots of different ways. That's going to be part of it. Like there are so many things that we have created in terms of medicine, technology, infrastructure that go beyond just meeting our basic needs. You see what I'm saying? We have created situations where we're not just meeting our basic needs and doing what needs to be done so that we can like have food and shelter. And that expansion beyond the basic need is not always a bad thing. That is life generation. That is ingenuity. That is innovation. And like I said, a lot of what we have innovated into has been incredibly helpful for increasing the life experience of that which has value. Human life, animal life, plant life, the environment. Okay, so we don't want to get into black and white thinking where we think, okay, if we're going to be anti-hustle culture, if we're going to be anti-work, if we're going to be anti-whatever, that this means that we never innovate, we never expand, we only do the bare minimum, and everyone has to live as like a complete minimalist. That is not reality. That is, like I say, that's black and white thinking. And I think that a lot of people who talk about that kind of stuff and who share that is the way that it is. Oh, thanks, Nina. Happy to have you here. Are again, they're being gaslit and they're being convinced of a way that isn't reality. Okay, it's not pragmatic. In order to keep us stuck in the systems that we're in, where we are constantly feeling like we're not good enough, we're not doing enough, we have to do more, we have to produce more, we have to do all of this, there needs to be a constant fear that if we don't do that, if we don't keep doing what we're already doing, if we were to actually step out of the systems that we have, that something horrible would happen. Right? That life would just get worse, that everything would be worse, that everyone would just be lazy, we wouldn't have what we need, everyone again would have to be like a full-blown minimalist in the most extreme sense, we could never have anything nice, we could never have luxury, we could never have anything special, and that everyone would just stop working and become lazy and all of this stuff. And like I said, again, that is fear-mongering, and that is don't change anything, don't question the system, don't do anything different, because if you do, just horrible, horrible things will happen. And we have to recognize that for the manipulation that it is, okay? Again, in real reality, if we're actually going to talk about what anti-hustle culture is the mindset that we live for what is pragmatically useful, what is pragmatically helpful for supporting that which has value. Okay, and then again, the second biggest shift out of hustle culture into true reality, into real anti-hustle culture, is to understand that right now the way that we value things, being how well do you fit into our current methods, our current system of production and consumption, which is all about ever increasing profits for those who own the means of production. When we see that that is fucked up, when we start to understand that that method of measuring value is the reason all of us feel so shitty about ourselves all the time, is the reason we are all now needing to be in therapy and everyone is getting burnt out and everyone is feeling like shit. If we can start to understand that this is not an individual problem, that this is a collective system problem, we are going to have a much easier time figuring out how to actually disengage from it in the ways that we can as individuals, which is different for everybody. So again, when we are living life and we are measuring everything against how well it serves to continue to increase the profit margins of those who are at the very top of our society, when we start to recognize that this is why so many of the problems that most of us in the westernized countries face, we are going to start to understand what true anti-hustle culture is. We, again, need to be very clear that we are being manipulated every single day, all day long, into participating in these systems that are harmful to most people to benefit the very few. Okay? Our systems of ever-increasing profit for those who own the means of production means that the working class has to be exploited. The only way we get to a place where people, like the owners of Amazon and Microsoft and those who provide our power and our food, are continually becoming billionaires within a society where there are still people who don't have enough to live. We are creating billionaires within a society where there are people who still do not have enough to live. We need to understand the only way that's happening is because of exploitation. It's because those who own the means of production are setting the price of the goods and services they are providing, and they are setting the wages of those who labor to create those goods and services. They are setting the price of how much you're going to pay, while also setting how much money you're going to earn for a day's work. They are deciding who is going to have what job, when, and where, who's going to have access, who isn't, because these corporations, yes, these corporations who right now have all the power, decide where food is shipped and where it isn't, decide what products are produced and what products are not produced. They decide who's going to have access to education and who isn't, how much that education is going to cost. They decide who's going to have access to medicine, who's going to have access to clean water. Do we see what we're seeing here? When we look at how our systems are actually set up, in order for that profit to continue to be made at the top of the system, there cannot be equal distribution. There cannot be fair wage for a day's work. There cannot be fair price for what something is actually worth. There cannot be equal opportunity for everybody to make a good life for themselves. Because if that existed, there would be less and less and less money left over as profit for those who own everything. If Jeff Bezos had to pay every single Amazon employee a true living wage, he had to give them benefits. He had to give them a reasonable working environment where they're not losing their mental health, their spiritual health, and their physical health. They're being given a living wage. If he had to do that, and if he had to charge what his service is actually worth, he would not be a billionaire. There would not be enough money left over for him to fly a rocket into space for 5 minutes because he felt like it. There would not be so much profit for the shareholders that, again, we have millionaires and billionaires, while most Amazon workers can't afford to live their lives. That is how that profit is being produced. Exploitation. And that exploitation is marketed to us, because we need to understand this, as fairness. That exploitation of labor is marketed to us as the people who work at Amazon, the people who work at Walmart and bag our groceries, the janitors, the people who drive our city transportation, the people who sustain and maintain our infrastructure. These are low-level workers. This is what we're told. I'm not saying that this is what is reality. I'm saying this is what we're sold. That these people are low-level workers, and I'm putting that in quotations, that it's low skill, and therefore it does not deserve a living wage in exchange for labor. We are sold that it is okay in countries where we have millionaires and billionaires. It is okay, it is reasonable, it is standard practice that we underpay people. You see where we're going with this? Because they don't increase the profit margins, which is a lie, of the shareholders, of the people who own the means of production. It is okay to exploit their labor because their labor is low value. And that narrative, even in and of itself, is a lie. Because if Jeff Bezos didn't have that low skill, people in his factories, people driving those Amazon delivery trucks, people bagging things and boxing things and doing everything that they do, he could not have a company. He could not be making billions of dollars. That low skill labor is 100% why he is making the profits that he is making. It is the opposite. It is the opposite of low value in terms of even his own productivity. And yet again, we are gaslit and told the people who bag our groceries just shouldn't earn a living wage because everyone can do that job. The people who work at McDonald's shouldn't earn a living wage because anyone could do it. That is insane. Like, we need to take a step back and realize that what we are being told and what we are being indoctrinated into is nutty. It makes no sense. Because again, not only are those jobs, so what if they're low skill? They need to get done. And unless and until we invent robots to do all these low skill jobs, whatever, humans are still going to have to do it. And why, again, are we saying that it is okay that any human being put in a full day's work to do something, to serve something that we want? Right? Like, this is, again, something we need to understand. Do we value being able to buy products online? Do we value being able to have them shipped to our homes? Do we value people making food for us so we don't have to make our own food? Do we value people driving the bus? Do we value people being janitors and keeping things clean? Because I'm going to guess that a lot of us, if we think about it, absolutely value having access to these services that people are doing. And why in the world would we then say, but it's okay for these people to put in a full day's work for a service and a thing that I would be upset if it wasn't there anymore, that I use and I utilize because I value it? It is okay for them to not have a living wage and to not be secure because it's low skill and anyone could do it. Right? This fear-mongering that says, if we made it so that everyone who bagged groceries and was a janitor and was a bus driver could actually earn a living wage, this is going to decrease motivation for people to, get a real job. Again, what does that even mean? That's an insane thing to say. Unless and until we don't value the skill, we don't value the outcome of the jobs that these people are doing. Why does someone need to not be bagging groceries for the rest of their life? Why is it not okay for some people to be a bus driver forever? For some people to be a janitor? If these are things we need in order for society to function, which they are, if we value these services, which we do, why are we saying it's going to decrease motivation? It's not going to decrease motivation. It's going to increase motivation for people to do those jobs well because they're being paid a living wage. Because again, this gaslighting, That if we make it so that you can make a living wage doing these low skill jobs, no one will go for anything higher or better, again, is a total sham. If someone has the desire to do something other than low skill jobs, they're gonna do it. And again, in a system where we actually value people enough that when they work at the grocery store or when they drive the bus or whatever, they actually earn a living wage, more people would go and get an education. More people would probably say, okay, I don't want to do this low level thing because I have the means and the time and the energy to invest in other things, to invest in my own growth and my own expansion and my own education, because I'm not just trying to keep my head above water. And I'm going to go and I'm going to try and do something different than these low-level jobs. Low level, again, in quotations. So we need to understand that what's really being said is not we are worried that if we pay people a living wage, no one will bag groceries. Or if we pay people a living wage, no one will go and innovate. We need to know that what these people are actually saying is we want to gatekeep any possibility of upward mobility to people who already have money. That's what they really mean. We want to make it okay for certain groups of the population to be constantly in a state of system manufactured insecurity. So you're working your job, you're a maid, you're a janitor, you're a bagging groceries, you're a bus driver, whatever it is. And you're not making enough money to keep your head above water. You're in a constant state of stress. And then you live in neighborhoods where there's food deserts and where the education is just not that good. And so many things that you would need in order to move yourself up in society are just not available to you because you don't have money. What they're saying is we need to keep these people in that state of constant insecurity, constant lack of access, so that we can continue to exploit their labor and become rich. That is really what they mean. They are not afraid that people aren't going to be motivated to level up in society if people were given a living wage for jobs we need to get done. They are not afraid of that. It's the opposite. They are afraid that if everyone was being paid a living wage, people wouldn't be able to be exploited. More people would go and say, I don't want to do these low-level jobs. They would demand an opportunity to do something different. And then we couldn't gatekeep it. And then, right, it would be more and more people having access to these things, which right now are status symbols. Right now, it's if you're not already rich, if you weren't born into a situation where you're upper middle class, the chances of you getting there are slim to none because society is set up that way. That is what hustle culture is. Hustle culture is telling us that those who do not have enough do not have enough because of their own failing. They're lazy, they're unmotivated, they're not doing what they should be doing because look at all these other people who are doing great and who are thriving. Society is the same for everybody, so if you're failing, it's your fault. But that is a lie. That is an absolute bold-faced lie. It is not reality. And that is how hustle culture is being perpetuated. So we have sects of society that are continually held out from opportunities to make their lives better. And then those people are scapegoated, and for everyone in the middle class and the upper middle class, they are used as a threat, right? If you don't keep producing, if you don't keep striving, if you don't keep thriving, if you don't keep being willing to sacrifice your humanity to the system, you're going to end up like them. Lazy, unmotivated, bad. You're not going to have what you need. You're going to be a criminal. You're going to be all these things, like these bad, bad people. And we're so built to be afraid of that. Okay, again, we are being manipulated with our deep nervous system program that all of us got in childhood that says to be loved, to be approved of, to be accepted is to be safe. To be rejected, to be told I'm not good enough, to be told I'm not the way that I'm supposed to be, is to be made unsafe. Because remember, in the temporary codependent reality of our childhoods, we could not provide for ourselves. We could not get our own needs met. We were fully and completely dependent upon our caregivers to do that for us. So we all learned on a visceral level that to be rejected is to not have what we need. To be told that we're not good enough is an existential threat. So most of us are triggered by the society we live in every day. Because what is the message that society tells those of us in the middle, upper middle class? Constantly. You are not enough. You are not good enough. Your body's not the right thing, right? Whatever the trend is, your body, you need to be constantly working on your body to make it the trends. You need to be constantly working on your fashion to make it the trends. What is acceptable labor? How much labor? What kind of labor? It's never enough, right? In order to be good in our culture, you have to be ambitious. You have to be striving for more. You have to be hustling. You have to have a side hustle now. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Because that's what makes a good person. That makes a worthy person, so that you're not lazy. You're not bad. You're not wrong. You should be continually leveling up. Do you have a partner? Do you have the right kind of partner? Do you have the right number of children? Are you having children? Are you not having children? Are you on the right place on the political spectrum? Constant feeding of the culture wars, of who deserves to be respected and who doesn't, who deserves space and who doesn't, who are we allowed to exploit and who are we not. This constant triggering of our fear that we're not enough, that we're not good enough, keeps us stuck in these cycles of excess production, where we are trained, again, to over and over and over again sell our humanity to continue to function in the work environment that is totally unhealthy and is there to exploit us. So even if you're making a living wage, even if you're making more than enough, most of us continually feel like it's not enough. Like we're not enough. Like we're not doing enough. It's never enough. Because if we were to get to a place where we said, it's enough. I'm making enough money. I'm putting in enough effort. I don't need to keep going. This is fine. We are no longer participating in the one value that our current corporate society values, which is exponential growth and production. If any of us who are in the middle were to start to say, okay, we're not going to do more. This is enough. I'm doing enough work. I can pragmatically put food on my table. I have a nice place to live. I can enjoy some luxuries. I can enjoy my friends. I can enjoy some time off. I don't need to do more. Our entire system would collapse. I need us to all really, really think about that. If we weren't all continually being goaded into saying, well, you should be a millionaire. You should be doing more. You should be producing more. And even this idea of like good people. We need more good people to have more of the money. You're a good person, right? You're a good person who's in the middle. You know what would be good for society. There should be more money in your hands so that you can make better decisions. If we understand that the founding fathers of capitalism literally set the system up that way, they said, those of us who are at the top of this system are smarter than everybody else. It's better for us to have all this money, to hoard all this wealth, as we are the owners of the means of production. So again, remember, we are the owners of the means of production. Therefore, we set the price of the goods that the people need, and we set their wages. We're setting both so that we can accumulate as much profit for ourselves by keeping the wages super low and the prices super high. Just enough that people can sort of afford it, but that they are then dependent on us for work and for labor, and they will do more work than they are being paid to do. Because that's the only way they can afford the services they need that we provide. They said it's better for us to hoard the wealth at the top and then decide how society is set up. Decide that we'll put some of it into charities and some of it into trusts, instead of just paying people a living wage so they can decide for themselves how they want to spend their money. That is what that system is. That is the system we're living in right now. The corporate owners are still living by that. It's better for those who are at the top of the corporation to have all the money. So they can set the price, they can set the wage, they can set who has access to what, when, where, why, and how. So that the people who are just stupid don't have the power to make choices for themselves. That is what they said. That is the system we live in. So then when we are told, you're one of the good ones, you should have more money, it's still that system. No, we don't need more money in the hands of good people. Because again, in order to hoard, you're not a good person. Not to say that you're not a good person, but when you're hoarding, you're not doing something good for society. No matter how much we want to try and slice it and dice it and look at it some other way, it's never a good thing. To hoard beyond what you basically, like what you need to have a reasonably good life. So again, I'm not saying ultimate minimalism, we should never have any luxury, we should never have anything we enjoy. It should be just about meet your basic needs and then do nothing else. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is enough is enough. And then it needs to be about distribution so that more people have enough. So now again, what we're being sold right now as anti-hustle culture is rest culture. Get therapy, go to the spa, do all these things to take care of yourself, self-care, skincare, work out, eat more food so you can grow your muscles. What is the thing? What is the theme throughout all of what we're being sold as anti-hustle culture? You need to have money to access any of these things. Corporations are selling us rest culture in terms of consumable goods. Because in our system, the only two acceptable ways of being are to be in a state of production, and if you're not in a state of production, you need to be in a state of consumption. They don't care whether you're in a state of production and hustling and burning yourself out, or if you're in a state of nourishing yourself with therapy and baths and going to the spa and treating yourself to food. They don't care. It makes them more profitable either way. Do you see what I'm pointing at here? If anti-hustle culture is only available to those who are winning the hustle culture game, who have money, who have expendable time and money and space in their day to be extra consumptive, that is not anti any system that we're in. That is completely feeding into the system that we're already in. What we are being sold as anti-hustle culture, this rest culture, is a sham. Now, am I saying therapy is bad? Am I saying we shouldn't treat ourselves? No. But I would really like to ask, why do all of us need therapy? Why are all of us so burnt out and so stressed out and so not okay, trying to keep up in our society, that we all need therapy, that we all are needing to pay literally so much of the time to have what just community should be? Why are we all so frustrated and separated from one another and isolated? Why are we all still so afraid to not have the latest trending thing? Because our system is messed up. This isn't an individual problem, and we are being continually sold individual solutions to systemic problems so that we won't look at the system. So, again, if that which is anti-hustle culture is only available to the people who are winning the game of hustle culture already, and in order to access all of these things, you have to keep participating in hustle culture. In order to have therapy, you have to keep working your job. In order to treat yourself, you have to keep doing the things that are leading you to need to treat yourself, to give yourself a break. All the shit that's burning everybody out is the stuff we have to keep doing in order to afford the things we're being sold as the remedy to these things. It's a snake eating its own tail. This is not a rebellion from the system. Beyonce singing songs about quitting your job is a fucking just fuck you to everybody. And I don't see how we don't see that. That was a major flipping of the bird. Like celebrities talking about their skincare line. Oh my God, no. Celebrities talking about their diet. Who cares? Like, this is where we really should be. Like, the fact that we're even just like dissecting what celebrities are eating in a day, we're being totally distracted. No. Why is it that they can afford all of the wellness things that they do, and the regular average person cannot? Why do they all have the time and the energy and the expendable everything in order to be able to take good care of themselves that way? Because hustle culture. That's the only reason that's happening. They are exploiting. They are at the top of the system. They can do whatever the fuck they want. And that is not the reason they are well. Their diet, their wellness routine, that's not why they're well. They're well because they have money. So they can afford whatever they need at any time to support themselves. It's not the diet that's keeping them well. It's the exploitation that keeps them rich. This is what we need to start to understand. And again, the big key is that we're stuck in it because we constantly believe that we are not good enough. That is how this whole thing is sold to us. Manufactured discontent. Manufactured discontent in the fact that there are people in our societies where we have billionaires who work and don't make a living wage. That is insane. That is not okay. The fact that that is justified is insane. It means our value system is totally messed up. The fact that we are everyone is burnt out and feels crazy and doesn't feel good enough and feels like no matter what you achieve, it's just the new bottom. The reason we all feel that way is because culture is set up to make us feel that way. Because that's what keeps us participating in these systems of exploitation over and over and over again. And then being convinced that when they sell us self-help and self-improvement and wellness routines as being the solution, we are susceptible to that because we already believe everything's our fault. Everything's our responsibility. So this is why, again, the self-love path is, yes, an individual path in the beginning. It teaches you to check out of this constant idea that you are not good enough, this constant idea that you don't have enough, that you're not producing enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not thin enough, that you're not whatever enough. And you start to find some actual self-esteem. You start to find some actual truth of who you are and the value you have outside of the measurement system of how productive or consumptive are you. How well do you fit into the profit margins of our corporations? You start to see yourself outside of that system. Then you become a community activist by literally saying, okay, I'm going to get to my enough and I'm not going to keep taking more. I'm not going to keep leveling up and getting richer and raising my prices or whatever it is. I'm not going to keep side hustling. I'm not going to keep consuming things I don't actually need. I'm going to say this is enough, and then I'm going to find ways to live my life where there are at least some times in my day where I'm not consuming or producing anything, where I'm existing, I'm being, I'm actually in conversation with somebody, like actually connecting with another human being. Not so that I can give them something or they can give me something. It's not an exchange. It's a connection. I'm going to go sit outside and just be there. I'm going to write a poem. I'm going to do something that's nourishing for me. You see what I'm saying here? I'm going to start to exist as a human. And I'm going to start to assess what actually has value, what labor actually has value, and what labor is not valuable because it now just requires exploitation to keep being productive. Where do we not need to keep destroying the environment to produce more things? Where do we not need to keep getting busier in our own lives to the point where we need other people to be exploited to take care of things for us, right? Like when people say, we all have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce. No, we don't. Beyonce has childcare and people who cook her meals and people who clean her home and people who manage her finances and do all this stuff. So all she has to do is put on a concert. So yeah, her concert is great. She's amazing. But the reason that happens is because all of those other people. And maybe she's paying them a living wage and it's not totally exploitative. But again, do those people really want to be cleaning her toilets? Who knows? But the point being, again, just because you can continue to produce in our system doesn't mean you're doing a good thing pragmatically. If it's costing us more than what it's giving us. So again, if we can return to this idea of what has value is that which supports life. If we start to measure everything by that metric, it's going to become very clear very quickly the things that we're doing that are not good for us. The things that we have been conditioned to believe are good and useful that are absolutely not, that are harmful. We will start to understand why learning to love ourselves is so important Because it's not just about being nice to ourselves so we can get back to work and get back to doing all the things that we're doing. That's what a lot of people think self-love is going to do. It's going to make it so that you can hustle harder. No. Real self-love is going to make you go, these are all the areas I can't make myself feel good. These are all the areas I'm never going to succeed because I shouldn't, because it's harmful, because it's not healthy. When we have true self-love, we are radical in our ability to identify what is not actually good in terms of pragmatically supporting our lives and the lives of the people around us, and we will check out of it. That is what true self-love will lead us to. Self-love will not make you a better hustler. That's what everyone wants it to be. They want self-help and self-motivation so that they can get into the system and be successful within it. No, true self-love will make it so that you are not successful in the system. It will make you someone who demands a better system. You will check out of the shit that does not work for you. You will reconnect with your emotions and your body, and you'll go, whoa, all of this shit hurts. And it's not my fault. It's not that there's something wrong with me. It's that this doesn't work. This is not okay. So now how can I figure out ways from my means and where I am to make a better life for myself where I'm not engaging in these things? A lot of it is checking out. A lot of it is stopping participating. And that's scary because people are going to reject us and they're not going to understand us, and they're not going to say, well, they're going to say you're not following the trends and you're not doing the things, so you must not be healthy and you must not be good enough and you must not blah, 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 blah. And it's all everyone just crabs in the bucket to keep us in alignment with this shitty culture. Because we're constantly told that if you're not, right, no matter how bad this is, any alternative would be worse. That's the fear that they put in us. And it's not true. There is better. But you have to be able to check out of the things you don't need to be doing. You don't need new clothes every quarter. You don't need to continue to hustle and level up and do more when you have enough already. When we check out, when we actually get on the self-love journey, we will get into real anti-hustle culture, which is what actually has value and what pragmatically supports that and what does not. And how can I check out of that? And it's going to look different for all of us because we all have a different level of access and wealth and privilege and resource to be able to check out of it. And that's why I say those of us in the middle class, it is our responsibility to do this. Because we will give the people who are right now at the bottom of our system being exploited more of a chance. When those of us who have the ability to check out do, we destabilize the system so that those who have less and less power to change things have more power. That's our job, to stop taking more than we need, to stop participating in these systems of exploitation as much as we can, because it makes the thing fall apart. As much as we can. None of us are going to be perfect. We're all going to participate in exploitation. None of us made the systems that exist. We can't feel guilty about it. We just have to do what we can do to check out of it. Okay? So that's what actual anti-hustle culture is. What has value? What supports that? Can we start to see that? Can we stop saying we all need therapy because we're all messed up? No, what is traumatizing all of us? What is making it so that all of us need therapy? What's making it so that all of us are wondering what the celebrity eats all day? Instead of being like, no, what's really going on here? Why are we all still in such a state of needing self-help and personal growth, and the personal growth and self-help industry being billions of dollars? Why are we continually trying to become more productive? Why are we trying to fix ourselves so that we can produce more in the system? These are the big questions. This is anti-hustle culture. Okay? So it's really different from what we're being sold. And it's super important that we get it. When you start to feel like you are good enough, just how you are, you become the most radical anti-hustle culture person they will ever be. And you will find your steps for how you can check out of it and how you can start to create something better. But no, it's not just about bubble baths and therapy. We have to look at the system. Why are you so exhausted? And again, right? It's going to be about acknowledging. It's going to be about acknowledging where we don't feel good and why it doesn't feel good, and being able to check out instead of saying, I need to fix myself so that I can fit in. Okay, where can I learn more about this? This is what the mystery school is. The whole mystery school is this step-by-step process of doing all of this to check out of this. So if you want help from me, check out my mystery school, check out my YouTube, check out other, equity, anti-racism teachers are teaching on Instagram, on Facebook. There's lots of places to learn about this. But like I say, this is like the core of my message. We need to learn to love ourselves enough that we can understand when we're being sold a lie. And every time you're being told that your pain is your fault and it's because you're not good enough, you're being sold a lie. Every time. So if that's your new thing, every time I believe that my pain is because I suck, that is a lie. That's going to be your main, makes you start to question your reality, because this is what this is. This is why the mystery school is so long, because this is paradigm shifting. We have to be able to shift how we see the world, the literal lens we are seeing the world through. This is why my company is called the Perception Trainers. Because right now, it all makes sense to us, how we see the world, and therefore what we're doing to try to make ourselves feel better and what we're participating in and all that stuff, because we've been conditioned that this is how it should be. So the foundations for this is questioning our perception of what is correct. And that's why I can sit up here and make a video every week about this. And it's like mind-blowing every time, because it's a completely different paradigm. It's not just the opposite of what we're thinking. You see? So I have thousands of hours of content, free and paid. Go to my blog, go to my YouTube, go to my school. There's so much information. But really it's about learning how to start to approve of yourself for who and what you are right now. And that's the ticket out. That's how you start to see things that you're not seeing right now. That's how you start to break through the perception. Because this is what it is. It's a perception game. Okay? Okay. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that gives some insights and some, you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not bad. You're not wrong. If you're struggling in our system, it's because the system is messed up. So if you start to get on your own side, then what? Okay? Okay. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'll see you when I see you. Have a good day, week, night, month, wherever you are. I'll see you later.